All right, g'day, Novocastrians. Welcome back to the Jetstream special episode today. We've been able to organise the current chairman. Is that the official
I
title, Morris?
would say executive director or executive chairman. The
Executive
executive
chairman.
director would be the formal
The
title.
formal title, right? Executive director of Maverick Sports Partners and obviously the Jets. Maurice Bisetto. Maurice, thank you very much for joining us on our humble little podcast.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Mate,
Pleasure.
it's been a couple of mate, 2 months ish. How's things been going? How have you been splitting your time between? Yeah, I understand your current home is in Melbourne and Newcastle. So how's the frequent flyer miles going? And how's your time been spent over the last couple of months?
Okay, yeah. Well, it's been sort of closer to 4 months,
Yep.
Grant. So,
So yeah,
um,
you're right. It is,
yeah,
bloody- yeah, July.
yeah,
Yeah, all those months ago. Time
yeah.
flies.
So things have been going well. I'm sort of still commuting at the moment, mainly because sort of the weekends. There's not a lot in this time of the year, both with the men's and women's and the academy teams pretty much have finished their seasons as well. So I sort of get up here first thing on a Monday morning and head back to Melbourne either a Wednesday evening or Thursday evening. But I think in the next couple of weeks, as we get closer to round one for the men's, and obviously a couple of weeks after that, the girls kick off their campaign. I'll be up here, pretty close to full time, and certainly here for the weekends for the games.
So when
So
the announcement came out, obviously that was the deal was signed, or were we still waiting on some sign off at that point from the
no,
AP?
we'd actually formally signed the deal to acquire the Jets a number of weeks before that, and really we waited, I suppose, as long as we could to get the sign-offs from both the APL and then Football Australia from a fit and proper person point of view, and that sort of took all up maybe 5 to 6 weeks. So that really coincided with when we formally went with the announcement.
How long was the interest process for you? Because obviously there was a lot of talk from about the beginning of this year of a number of different consortiums vying for ownership. Were you involved all the way back then, or was it something that came up a little bit closer to the announcement date?
No, we as a consortium were involved in the due diligence process dating back to about October last year. And so we spent, I don't, 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks doing due diligence, and we put in at the time it was I think around November a non-binding indicative offer that it was a formal process, and NBIOs had to be in by a certain date, and we submitted ours, and at the time, unfortunately, we weren't shortlisted, and the process went to a preferred. I think there were two. I'm actually still not 100%
Yeah, one was
sure.
FC,
Never
I
really
think one
been
was
told.
FC32, and there was rumours of another one from possibly England somewhere, or
Yeah,
even might have
I
been.
can't. Other than FC32, I really can't confirm whether there were any others or not, and who they may have been. But certainly, you were a bit disappointed not getting shortlisted, and the process was run, very sort of with good governance, and it was quite diligent, and there were valid reasons why our bid didn't quite stack up, and then probably March of the next of this year, we got a call basically saying or asking if we were still interested
Yep.
in picking up again, and obviously the shortlisted parties had got cold feet for one reason or another, and so we re-entered the process, and then that happened reasonably quickly because we'd sort of done all our work, and yeah, we were sort of. I felt we understood where the sort of value sat in terms of the Jets and the license attached to it, and the sort of ownership in the APL and where the APL sat. So we had a pretty good sense. So we were sort of quite excited to be asked back into a process. It wasn't the process, but yeah, and then we were successful second time round.
The other party dipping, well, one of the other parties dipping out was sort of around the time all the turmoil at the APL was going on with cost cutting, and there was seemed to be bad publicity article
Yeah,
after bad publicity
yeah.
article, the grant being slashed and all that sort of thing. How much of that was a consideration with you and the other people in the consortium that might be a stumbling block for you guys as well?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. How am I going to answer this one? So yeah, look, definitely our friends at News Limited were friends of ours because they made the APL look like a complete basket case. 50 head cart. Where's all the money gone? Demanding audits and explanations, and it's a shambles. They're broke. Da 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 da. So, typical News Limited sort of bashing our game, have done for a long time. Unfortunately, I think it scared whoever was around, and I'm guessing they were sort of internationally based, because anyone that was sort of based in Australia and knew the Australian landscape and the A League and just the football landscape in general would have understood the gravity of the situation. Absolutely, I'm not downplaying it, but it was probably needed to be divided by two to get the sort of real picture. Now, having said all of that, we were completely blindsided by the APL's announcement to reduce the distribution to $530,000. So I'm not preempting in any way that we knew that was going to happen, because we thought there might be a reduction in the distribution, but all of our sort of budgets and strategies had it in at around sort of between 1.3 and 1.5. So it's put a little bit of a dent in our in our confidence, let me say.
Yeah. And how does that affect? Obviously, that's going to have to come from somewhere. How much of that affects your future plans? Does it put some things on hold, or is it something that's just got to be borne by the ownership group and there's nothing you can do about it? Or
no, look, there's plenty of levers to pull, Grant. I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose, submitted a strategy and a forecast and a budget to our board back in May, June of this year, before the season started. And the announcement, I think, came out in about July, and we sort of there's definitely some levers that were there for us to pull. It will not make up the sort of shortfall that the APL announced. Not shortfall, but the reduction in distribution. But it'll go some of the way there, definitely. So most of the clubs have been pretty agile. The main one is really player spend. Obviously a lot of clubs were sort of locked in with their squads, given contracts, generally star player contracts, both men and women. Well, certainly the men start 1st of July, so a lot of that's sort of locked in. But we had a little bit of headroom in there, and most A-League clubs, probably would have as well, anticipating, we're not going to lock everything in until this gets announced. But, some clubs still went out and secured the services of Juan Mata and Douglas Costa.
Yeah.
So, they're pulling the right levers, I'm thinking.
One of the questions I did have come through from one of our ex Jetstream contributors, Joel, sort of asked, he acknowledged this as a bit of a pessimistic type question, but that's fair enough. It links into football finance. Clubs, and our club in particular, makes losses every year on year. What's the plan, I suppose, to turn the profitability from a sort of league and a club standpoint around? And what's money's always been the issue when it comes to Newcastle. People have come in with plans to keep the team going, and it's always been an issue that the money's been pulled away at some point, whether it's been from one of Nathan Tinkler's parts of his business empire falling over, or Martin Lee getting unable to move money out of his country. And there's always been something that's come up. Even Conway back when was struggling for financial cash flow, and that was a reason publicly that he lost his license. So what's sort of Maverick Sports Partners plans with regards to the long-term future, I suppose? What's the plan for the long-term future from a financial standpoint before we get into other specifics around the club?
Yeah, well, the plan is it's simply communicated, but quite difficult to execute. But ultimately, we need the organisation to be sustainable, right? So having an organisation like the Jets lose money every year and be reliant on owners with pockets full of money to fund the operations going forward isn't the best strategy for long-term sustainability, right? Yeah. So that's the obvious one. Now, how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of things, and some of them we're reliant on, a really strong leadership shown at an APL level that brings the game, the league, certainly the domestic professional competition where it needs to be, with solid partners and sponsors and a better broadcast deal that, if we can get the distributions back to where they were last year, we've made a pretty big step towards sustainability. This year is going to be difficult. We will, we will make a loss this year, and we're budgeting to make a loss. But if that turns around, again, that will help. The other pieces to the puzzle really is around trying to reconnect with the community, and hopefully getting a bit of an uptick in memberships, getting an uptick in attendances and hence ticket sales, getting an uptick in our sort of commercial partnerships and relationships, and hopefully that combined with a stronger A-League and APL and new sort of broadcast deal may combine into crystallising a sustainable Newcastle Jets.
So sort of expanding on that, what's sort of your 3-year plan when it comes to the Jets? Is it basically centered around reconnect with the football community, reconnect with the commercial community, and cross our fingers that APL can get their house in order and things improve over the next couple of years to make that a better going concern for everybody, not just the Jets?
That is 100% the plan. We think we can get there with the right investment in the right places and in the right people. And we haven't talked about it, but it would also be really helpful if we have a successful team, men and women on the pitch. Would also help that, but it's not something you can factor into your budgets. Is winning 15 games in a year and getting in the top 2 or top 4. We're sort of budgeting on what's sort of been average, the sort of seasonal averages that the Jets have participated in. So, on-field performance would just be a bonus and will get us to where we want to be quicker. So there is also a lot of focus on pitch.
Does the on-pitch performance really come with much of a financial reward in it, or is it more about that generates excitement around the team, more people coming through the turnstiles to make the money?
Yeah, well, no, that's that. People like winning teams, right? So if you're winning games, you're going to get high ticket sales, maybe more members, certainly more sponsors and partners really want to connect with winning teams. I have to say that the sort of partners and sponsors that we have at the moment have been fantastic, and most of them have stuck really fat with the organisation through some pretty tough times. But I've said it many times, and I've sort of got to be careful, how I sort of say it. But I think there is a bit of a reality check for everyone. I think we can't underestimate how close the Jets maybe were from not being around, and if the community, the Newcastle, Upper Hunter, Maitland, Lake Macquarie communities want a Newcastle Jets, they do need to start putting their hands up and not even necessarily turning up, but just being advocates for the Jets. I think that's really important. Just having that community support and not just turning up when they're winning and not turning up when they're losing. Like we'll do our best to put on a really good event and try our best to connect with the fans and the community both on and off the field.
Righto. Just having a flick through a couple of questions. Peter, one of our former producers, basically asked what's the 3-2-1? Three things that you're stoked with, two things you're not happy with, and the one thing you think's critical to change.
Any chance I'm going to get an easy question?
Yeah, probably. I'll throw a few softballs towards the end. Depends how.
Okay. I'm stoked. I'm actually stoked with a lot of things. I'm stoked with our academy. Both the boys, the girls, the players, the families, the coaches. I'm stoked with them, and obviously the on-field achievements of, in particular, the boys. But let's not underestimate what the girls did, and probably had 4 or 5 girls attend young Matilda's camps, and are in really good shape. Made the semi-final just last season and had 7,000 people watching them at Maitland Sports Ground, right, which is an incredible effort. So I'm stoked with what's in there from a foundational point of view and the talent that's coming through the region, right? So absolutely stoked. I was pleasantly surprised there, Grant. Stoked with the people that are at the Jets in terms of organisationally, and that's to every man and woman, like across the organisation. They're great people that have been through some really tough times. Some of them, they've done it tough. They've done it really tough, and they've hung in there and kept the club going, right? And that's from CEO, from Shane all the way down to Frank the kit man, helping out the kit man, right? So I'm stoked with that, and I'm stoked with the community, right? So I have been around the community quite a bit in the last 4 months and met a lot of people, and I've starting to form a view of the people of Newcastle. And one thing I can say, and it's probably a function of, you've only got NRL and football as your sort of professional sports here in the region. So no AFL, no NBL. I don't know. I haven't even seen an oval, let alone a cricket game. But I'm sure there is cricket somewhere around the place. I know there's surfing, so that's pretty cool. But I'm stoked with the community and their knowledge of the game. That they are incredibly knowledgeable about our game. It's a very informed audience. I'm actually wading in at the moment, right? There's no, you can't. They know what they're talking about, right? They know a good player from a bad one. They know a hard-working footballer from a non-hard-working footballer, and the same. Yeah, it's. I'm stoked that I'm dealing with a really and working with a really informed, passionate football community.
Righto. So two things that you're not quite happy with, and one thing that's critical that needs to change.
Well, I'm not. I'm not happy. Does it have to be Jets specific? I'm not happy with the state of the game, or are we talking Jets now?
No, that doesn't have to be. It can be football related, but yeah, that
I'm
sort of
not,
goes to
I'm
the
not,
open.
I think the APL and the league. I really wished and hoped that they would be in a better state.
Yep.
No question. I think we need proper leadership as a sport. Just without naming names, but if you think about NRL and you think about Racing New South Wales and you think about the AFL, just littered historically with really strong leaders and strong leadership, and I think our sport could do with a bit of a leg up in leadership, and it's going to make the environment and the sport better for the participating A-League clubs, which are there putting the professional football product on the pitch. And that what never ceases to amaze me, over 2 million participants in this country that we just can't connect. A Matildas is probably the biggest brand in Australian sport today at the moment. Socceroos probably not too far behind, being one of the prominent Australian sports brands, and we can't get our shit together in the A-League, right? So, you've got a massive brand up there, over 2 million participants playing the bloody game, and just a disconnect. So that's one.
Yep.
One big one. Two.
I'm planning to talk to Shane at some stage in the next couple of weeks, so I'll be putting specific questions to him about how to reconnect and what the Jets plan. So I won't push you on those, but yeah, that's definitely something that's regularly comes up in discussions with. I think I remember a conversation with Mitchell Murphy ages ago. This was 3 owners ago, talking about failure to connect with Northern New South Wales football and the football community, trying to get the football community to come along to Jets games. But yeah. That's
well, look, we're working. I'm hoping that 4 months in, the people in the community, and that's whether it's the football community, the general community, or the business community, have seen a difference. Certainly, they should have seen a step up in our sort of our digital content and how we're trying to connect with more people, certainly digitally. Our community programs are running as strong as ever. So, and aside, I don't know how many people know, but last season, our holiday clinics and term clinics and skills clinics and school clinics, we had 3,500 kids participate in those clinics over one season. So they're doing an okay job with limited resources. So we're, thanks to fantastic sponsors like Greater Bank, for example, that really funds our sort of the bulk of our community programs. So it's been quite successful, but I'm hoping that 4 months in, there is a lift there has been seen, and people are getting the sense that the Jets are out there more than maybe than before. But and if they haven't, they will. Okay,
I have sidetracked you, so I'll, for the sake of time, I know you've got to head to an appointment soon. So your second thing you're not quite happy with, and one thing you think is critical that we need to change.
Oh. Oh. I'm going to say there isn't anything that I'm not happy with, Grant, if that's okay. It's not a cop-out.
No.
There's things I'd like to, of course, there's things I'd like to improve, but to say I'm not happy with them, having our girls play at number 2 Maitland, having our men train at Maitland, having our academy train and play out of Spears Point, it's a pretty big and disaggregated footprint.
Yep.
It works at the moment, and it's not that I'm unhappy with it, but if we could bring all that together into one incredible space, or let's call it centre of excellence or facility that can cater for all of them, I think that would be great. But there isn't anything that I'm not happy with at the
Well, you
Jets.
look, you answered another one of his questions without me having to ask it to you. So you've done pretty well there. Um,
By the way, I mean, just coincidental, I'm in a meeting room at
yep.
Northern New South Wales Federation. I'm in one of their meeting rooms, so we're really working hard to partner on a whole lot of programs. And so, again, 90,000 participants in the region, sort of all coming through Northern New South Wales. We have to be working in rhythm and in a really good partnership to enable both Northern and us to really service our football community.
Um, this is a completely random question. When does the this season's kit get launched?
Ah, can I say the exact date, or
Oh,
am I?
well, this
Probably
will be
my.
going out in the next
It'll be
48
this week. It'll be this week.
weeks. Okay, no worries. Awesome.
Yeah.
Because that sort of ties into the last one I'll ask from Pete, which was how the club's looking with regards to sponsorship. So obviously you mentioned needing to try and re-engage with the business community, bringing on more sponsorship dollars.
Yeah.
Also not forgetting, of course, that the sponsors that like you mentioned before, we've had that have stuck with the club through thick and thin, like the Greater, like Inspiration Paint, Port of Newcastle,
Yeah.
the
So
other sponsorship.
yeah. So both Grader, they're in their 10th year, and Inspiration Paint's in their 10th year. So Port of Newcastle being a great partner as well. All three, you'll see that pretty much every partner that we've had has stayed on this year. None have stepped away. Some have sort of changed their level of commitment, which is understandable. There's always circumstances, whether it be economics or business, whatever it might be. But people will see new partners on our kit. So basically, the sponsors and assets on our kits are full. We have one position left at the moment that we're trying to fill, which is the front of shorts for our men's. So we've still got a couple of weeks to finalise that, but we do have a new front of shirt sponsor. But everyone else is still on the kit and visible and continuing to support the Jets. So we've started well. It's only been 4 months. We're in it for the long haul, so it is about relationships, and we're hoping to continue to build those. This time next year, we're hoping to really continue to enforce and build those relationships.
Now, I had a question from Desi on the NewcastleFootball.net forum, but this is sort of tied into some stuff that's been going on with the fan council around active support. So that's sort of when this was posted, that sort of stuff hadn't all happened yet. So I suppose maybe just to take it in a slightly different direction, what's your view on active support in football, and how much freedom do you think the active support groups need to have with regards to expression and being able to do things organically rather than being dictated to or being heavily censored, like has been the way back when I was involved? There was a lot more freedom that obviously come with its own pitfalls, which caused a blowback the other way. But a lot of the decline, I think, in the A-League can be sort of partly attributed to the degrade in fan culture, because it was a strong, vibrant fan culture in the early seasons of the A-League. But through various administrations and security and policing standards, that's sort of been slowly eroded over the season. So what's your sort of overall view on the active?
I think you answered the question, Grant.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a fan of active. It's the active fans is one of the key things that differentiates our game to all of the others, right? So the difficulties that ABB and the Terrace at Victory and the car, like the difficulties that all of the actives have experienced have really hurt our game, no question. And whether it's over policing, over security, nanny states, whatever it might be. So I know one of the first couple of weeks I was in Newcastle. I attended the fan forum at the Jets that you attended, and I would have said then I'm a fan of active. I think we will do our best to support our active fans in any way possible. We've spent 20 minutes before we got on air talking about the TIFO in the picture there.
Yep.
I looked at it and I'm just, stunned with excitement looking at that TIFO and imagining that resurfacing at some point during the season, right? So I'm here to support the actives. Obviously, there are rules and there are, society is evolving.
Standards.
But I watched the MacArthur Bulls Victory game, and you can't take your eyes off the Terrace half the time, right? It's just a really spectacular part of our game that we need to get back and flourishing, and hopefully without the rough edges that sort of tend to surface from time to time. We've got to sort of work through managing that a bit better, but we will hopefully give our actives as much opportunity and help and resource as possible.
Excellent. And there'll be more announcements with regards to that on social media. So keep an eye on the Jets, keep an eye on Squadron Novacastria on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, because all that sort of stuff is sort of bubbling away in the background. And obviously most people who know me know that I was formerly involved. So it's something I'm fairly passionate about. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to come back in and help things on a more permanent basis, and to any sort of time constraints. It's a massive. It's something that you really got to throw your effort behind. You can't do it by halves. So I wouldn't want to come in and do it half-assed, which is why I haven't put myself forward. But I'm always happy to, if they need any advice or need help that I've got the time and the expertise to be able to do, then I'll definitely put my hand up and give them a hand. But
mate, you knew exactly how that TIFO behind you was made.
I was involved in part of it. I wasn't wholly responsible for that, most definitely not. The one Gavin Austin, who currently resides up past Taree, will be the one who can take the massive pat on the back for coordinating that. But still one of the biggest ones ever deployed in the A-League. So take that, RBB. We'll get on to the Facebook questions just to quickly wrap things up. Now, there was a question asked about a marquee player. Obviously, that's sort of been answered. The team's full. We brought on Wellersol in the last week. So that's pretty much the roster that you see now is as is.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I don't want to sort of steal Rob Stanton's thunder here, but or Ryan Campbell's, but we do have wiggle room, and it's important to have that little bit of flex. Should something be needed, or when sort of mid-season windows come around and whatnot. So I'm not suggesting that delving into the transfer market isn't going to happen because we're full. We've always got that flexibility. But in terms of rosters, both coaches are pretty happy with how they currently stand.
You've also sort of answered in a roundabout way Stephen McCarthy's question about will the Jets be looking to have play visits to schools and local clubs, and what other things are the club looking at to drive engagements with sort of younger fans, so 10 to 15, which seems to be a big area of opportunity to get rusted on fans, get them in and get them in early. But you did mention that the holiday clinics and all that sort of thing has been bubbling away. How is there going to be an increase in school visits and club visits, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we're working through that just as we speak. So it's an interesting one. I don't know if people saw it on social media, but we announced the Kids Learn program, where schools can apply to have, the sort of Jets come out and run a clinic at the school and give them sort of the tools that the school teachers or PE teacher can take on board and run similar programs without necessarily having the Jets guys there. So within 24 hours, we choose 20 schools to go to, and within 24 hours, 60 schools had registered.
Yep.
Wanting a visit, right? So I just took that and said, mate, that's unbelievable. We need to get to 60.
Yep.
So Matt Starr and the guys have gone away and are coming back with, how do we get to where we need to go to, especially when, someone's actually gone in there and registered and, taken the time to say, we want to see the Jets, we want a clinic. The other thing we're doing is we're sort of expanding our term clinics. So holiday clinics, they go gangbusters. They fill out like it. Really, we don't have enough coaches. We could do a lot more even in the school holiday clinics. And we're actually, I think we've got some spaces still left. We're talking about it today in the all girls holiday clinics at the moment. But then the term clinics are ones that sort of, obviously kids are back at school and it's slightly different and it coincides with clubs and training, but we're doing looking to expand term 4 clinics outside of Newcastle. We do most of them here near Lake Macquarie near Spears, but we're looking to roll one out in Maitland. So again, teams gone away and seen, to come back to see what resources they need. And it's also facilities. It's one thing wanting to run more clinics, but one of the things that I'm a bit surprised about in Newcastle is the lack of football infrastructure that there is around the place.
Yep.
So many washed out games through the last couple of months and only 2 synthetic pitches in the whole region is, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially coming out of Melbourne, which
they're everywhere.
Yeah, and I've seen less rain. I've seen more rain in the last 4 months in Newey than I have in 4 months in Melbourne at any time in my 60-year life.
Well, I mean, the joke is Melbourne gets 4 seasons in one day. We get 4 seasons. Well, we have 4 seasons, but it's if it starts to rain, it'll rain for.
It rains.
Yeah,
it rains. Yeah. So we had so many through that period. The last school holidays, we had so many clinics having to be called off because. It was the grounds were just waterlogged, and finding alternate pieces of grass and infrastructure it's not easy.
Yeah, and basketball's just lodged an application to develop over 2 of them across the road from the stadium.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but poor old basketball, right? We've got a couple in the office that are keen, sort of basketball, part of the basketball community. Apparently, in Newcastle, there's the basketball stadium where all the courts are, was built 40 years ago as a shed temporarily until the proper stadium was built and was going to, service sort of like a 3-year period. And that was like 40 years ago and it's still going.
Much like the
and they actually have games postponed when it rains as well, even though they're indoor because the roof leaks.
Yep. Yeah. So they're trying to find somewhere, but there's I won't get into that because this is not about
infrastructure in Newcastle. I know something's going on there.
Yeah. Well, you're just getting used to the Newey issue, so you'll find that Sydney gets most of the money and we get drip fed. So yeah, and also the council is obviously the main issue with infrastructure. So yeah, we'll leave that where it is. There's obviously a new myth been installed, and we'll see what happens with that. We'll try and wrap up pretty quick. Mike asked a bit of a feedback question about not happy about the draw. 12 home games, 14 away, and only 2 home games in the first 10 rounds is a bit of a strange one. Any reason why the APL thought that was a good idea?
No. Other than, I mean, they've got a tough gig with fixturing, and we do need to be a bit empathetic in terms of, they've got broadcasters to keep happy. They've got venue availability as an issue. So they're working through it. You've got like, when the APL give you lemons, you can make lemonade, right? So I see it a bit different. I think two home games leading up to Christmas is a good runway. So your memberships. So you get to Christmas, and a Jets membership gets you to 10 home games in the second half of the year, right? So the memberships will retain really good value up until Christmas, and that's a positive. The other positive is as anticipated. If we're going to be up there as championship contenders or in line for finals, those last few home games, I think the last four home games, three of them at home, they're going to be absolute cracking games. And the last home game is actually the Wanderers, which could be huge on Anzac Day, right? So that Anzac weekend. There's a lot of positives about it. Of course, maybe if it was a bit more spread pre and post Christmas, it would work better. But our girls are also, they've got, I think, about 4 or 5 games before Christmas. Yep. So there's plenty of professional football games for Jets fans to go watch leading up to Christmas between the men's and the women's.
Right. Well, so looking at time, I think we're just about out. But is there any final messages you want to pass on to anyone who may not have caught any of your public speaking engagements or met you around the traps in Newcastle? What's your message to Jets fans about the club and about the future?
Yeah, look, the message is, insofar as Maverick Sports Partners are concerned, we are excited and really looking forward to the partnership we have with the Jets, absolutely. And we'd love to be able to leave a legacy of a really successful and sustainable Newcastle Jets organisation, right? So that's a real sort of motivating and driving factor for Maverick Sports Partners. In terms of, I just, sort of really hope that the football community, and I know they're there, I've met heaps of them, really come on board, and even if they don't come on board, they are become advocates for the Jets and really help promote the Jets in the community and sort of ask their friends, why don't we go see a game? Let's give these guys a chance and take it from there, right? Because I think that there's an untapped potential in this region.
Yep.
That is really exciting, and it would be, I would be really dark on myself and the rest of the Maverick Sports Partners if we just can't extricate the community into having a successful football team.
Oh, fabulous, mate! Really appreciate the time you give us. I know you do have to race off to another meeting, so we'll pause it there. But we're definitely looking to get you back on at another point during the season to check in and see how things are going. But mate, for your time today and making yourself available, really thank you. Thanks.
Anytime, Grant. And if any of your listeners and supporters of the podcast want to, come out and have a cup of coffee and have a chat, I've had plenty of those, and welcome any feedback, suggestions, or recommendations that anyone has.
How does the coffee culture compare to Melbourne?
I'll tell you what, Newcastle coffee is very, very good. It's actually more expensive than Melbourne. It's sort of Sydney prices around here, but I can tell you, all of the food venues, the pubs, the restaurants, the cafes, it's really good. You guys are spoiled. Definitely.
Well, we asked all the hard questions in this episode, so next time we get you on, we're going to have to get your Newcastle impressions of coffee, food, and touristy spots, and see how you feel about those. But mate,
look forward to it, mate.
Really, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
You're welcome. See you, Grant.